Hi, I'm Oliver and this is Deep Cuts, a channel dedicated to music for lovers of music. Absolutely buzzing to talk about this month's essential. My pick today is Sing to God, the deranged art, punk, prog, experimental rock double album from 1996 by Cardiacs, one of the most compelling groups you're ever likely to come across. A cult band in the truest sense of the word, they delight and repel in equal measure. Famously, Tom York is a massive fan, but DJ legend and music influencer John Peel absolutely hated them. It's certainly not wallflower music. Tim Smith's band, formed in 1977, have an undoubtedly prog-flavoured, throw everything at the wall approach, and that is something that you will hear if you make the decision to delve into this complex, varied record. Tim Smith has never really liked the label prog or art prog or punk prog, some of the different things that have been attributed to Cardiac's music. He seemed like it was a bit of an affront to him almost to describe his music like that. Now to him and his bandmates, the music they're making is pop music, maybe psychedelic if anything, but there is a trend with a lot of different artists where they don't like the labels that are attributed to their music. However, as fans of music, music listeners, you have to listen to this and think, what does this most sound like? I wouldn't want to call this a pop record because I would be massively selling it in the wrong direction completely if I said to you, listen to this pop album, and you put on Sing to God and go, what? Pop? I mean, there are poppy elements to it, but there are also punky elements to it. And I think if you were going to identify any specific label with this music, you would call it progressive, or at least progressive flavoured. The prevalence of ostentatious keyboard work, group harmony vocals, baroque-esque harpsichord sounds, multiple contrasting complex sections throughout single tracks, not to mention the sheer length of the project itself. There's also the shadowy background narrative of the band, which is the label, the Alphabet business concern, which apparently have complete Orwellian corporate control over the band and what they do. The history section of the band's site is peppered with this kind of mock, sinister information like, no one actually witnessed this. If Alphabet was anything to do with this action, then it was to be the first of many liberties to be taken. In an interview with the Yorkshire Post in 2007, Smith had this to say about ABC. We always want to do it, it's just that we're not always allowed. I once made the mistake of publicly saying that we consider touring to be a holiday. The organisation who look after us use this to punish us and have cancelled many tours and recording sessions. We have tried hard to behave ourselves the past few years. We must have been a bit better of late. It's another fun dimension to this creative band, which you can tell Tim Smith is having a lot of fun with in this interview. Sadly, Tim Smith fell ill in 2008, which has put Cardiac's music on hold indefinitely. He suffered from a cardiac arrest, and I'm sure the morbid irony of that is not lost on Tim Smith at all. And from that, he had a stroke and then developed something called dystonia, which means he struggles with dexterity and mobility. However, if you read the history section, the bottom of the history section on Cardiac's site, this is what it says. And so for 5 years, history ceased to be created by Cardiacs, unless we consider the undignified shenanigans of Tim Smith, who fell into a pool filled with shit and is still crawling and scratching his way out of it. The Alphabet business concern wishes it to be known that, whilst maintaining complete control of his artistic output, they disassociate themselves entirely with his recent illness and, in fact, fail to recognise it as an excuse for not fulfilling his duties. It shows Smith's dedication to his band and the mythology of it, that he doesn't want his illness to break the spell of Cardiacs and that cultic narrative that sits behind it. What a guy. There's a Just Giving crowd fund set up to try and pay for some of his costs, his health costs over the next few years. I've put the link in the description, so please take a look at that site and consider donating to him. Moving on to the music itself, Sing to God is a breathtaking listen. One of my favourite double albums and arguably the zenith of Cardiac's musical output. Whereas Smith was pretty much the sole orchestrator for early Cardiac's output, this record has more of a collaborative flavour to it, specifically John Peel, who provides those intricate keyboard and guitar parts that are peppered throughout this record. And I think his contributions are a big part of what would push you to perhaps call this record proggy. If you listen to a track like Fiery Gun Hand, for example, you will absolutely get a taste of that. Other personnel on Sing to God, and it does change extensively throughout the band's history. You have Jim Smith, which is Tim's brother, who does bass and vocals. You have Sarah Smith, who does sax and vocals and is Tim's wife. You have Bob Leith on drums, and you have a host of other musicians, including a string quartet. The theatricality of Sing to God is what makes it feel so gigantic, That opening track, Eden on the Air, opens with lush harmonies. You have dramatic group vocals, twinkling chimes, and it prepares you for the first proper track chocked full of divergent sections called Eat It Up, Worm's Hero. This double time track is full of killer riffs and quite a lot of aggression, but it never loses the theatricality that was clear in the first track, and you straight away have a demonstration of Paul's complicated keyboard parts. Something that's absolutely standout about Cardiacs is the very British inflection of Tim Smith, and also the humour that comes through, the lyricism and a lot of the music, and that is exemplified no better place than Dog Like Sparky, which has madcap lyrics, these meaty sax tones from Sarah, and this fantastic chord progression that goes all over the place. If you listen to this record a couple of times, the chorus of Dog Like Sparky is the thing that'll be stuck in your head. You'll be humming it over and over again. The other day I was cleaning my teeth and I was aggressively nodding my head and humming it, and I looked absolutely mental. A personal favourite lyric on that track is "Put your hands on the Holy Bible and scream wank." In a genius bit of writing on Insect Hoofs on Lassie, another great track title, a 6/8 backline is contrasted with a straight 8th note keyboard part, which is really disorienting, especially because the section ends just as quickly as it begins. The dissonant attacking digital organ tones with the overdriven guitar and Horse's Tail sounds apocalyptic in some ways, and it disappears with this triumphant string-led finale, a sound which the band return to throughout this record with great effect. Wireless is 8 minutes long and contains some particularly strange sections of music, including this overbearing panning clicking sound which comes from scissors being used, and it makes the entire scape feel really claustrophobic. The rest of the track eventually dissipates and leaves the clicking sound of the scissors and this ambient drone to underscore Smith reading a children's story called Peril on the Sea. Excellent dramatic effect and more than a little creepy. Speaking of creepy spoken word, Quiet as a Mouse has Jim and Tim's mum recounting a story of trying to kill the drummer Bob Leith, maybe? Look who's coming round the corner. Hello, do you know him? It's tiny Bob Leith, pretty as a picture. Shall we beat him senseless? Yes, but this is where I take my time. Sing to God is easily one of those records where I could talk about every single track, and unfortunately I cannot do this on a 10-minute Essentials video, but I can't end without talking about the Floyd-esque finale Foundling, which takes spacey synth tones and gorgeous chord progressions to see you out of this lush, long, complex 90-minute journey. The fact that the mad pomposity of this record still comes through on the comparatively subdued finale is testament to the musical vision of Smith & Co., a band which makes undeniably unique, off-the-wall music which is not for everybody. But for those of you that do manage to connect with it, I believe you'll find a lifelong friend in this album. It's an album that I can throw on and relax into and discover new things every single time. It's an amazing piece of work, and that is why it's a Deep Cuts Essential. Thank you for watching this Essential. Please listen to Sing to God, let me know what you think of it. Come and join me on the Deep Cuts Discord on Tuesday at 10 o'clock BST for a listening party of this record. It's going to be a long one, a long listening party, an hour and a half, but it should be fun to listen to this album together, so please come and join me. Thank you for watching as always. Thank you to my patrons. I'll be back next week with a 5 albums video. See you then.